Well, good morning, everybody. It's Daybreak here at iFiber One News Radio. I'm happy to have in studio this morning the CEO of Peninsula Credit Union for our weekly chats about the credit unions, Jim Morrell. Good morning.
Good morning, Jeff.
Thanks for being on the air with me.
Absolutely. Happy early Thanksgiving to you.
Happy early Thanksgiving to you. We've had some great conversations over the last couple of weeks with Aaliyah Phipps at Peninsula Credit Union. We've been talking about all sorts of great things that the credit union has to offer and what they do for the community. I know you recently have been on a trip over to Africa. You went to a couple different countries in Africa, and you were able to not only be a visitor and see some of the sites there, but also speak about credit unions and how. Talk to me about how they're similar or different to the credit unions we have here.
Yeah. So thanks for the opportunity to do that. It was a remarkable trip. It was vacation time for me personally to kind of have an opportunity to grow and think about things in a different way, in a different environment. And credit unions over there are growing. They're much younger than our credit unions here are in the United States. Peninsula started in 1935,
right.
And some of the credit unions people that I met with, their organizations started perhaps 2 years ago or 7 years ago or 10 years ago. So, they're not all that old, and they're trying to figure out really the same things that we are. That is, one of the primary interests that credit unions have is how do we increase people's financial capability? And we start that by training them or educating them on the importance of saving money. If they can save a little bit of money, then they have that financial foundation on which they can build the rest of their life or leave things. Many of the individuals that I met with, particularly in Harare, Zimbabwe, are really interested in making sure that they have some savings left over when they pass away so they can pass that on to their relatives, to their wife or their children. But also to help each other as a community strengthen what they're doing. I went into one credit union environment where there were 11 different cooperative organizations making furniture and beautiful cabinetry work, metal fencing, well pump parts and pieces, painting. These cooperatives came together to form a credit union, and the purpose of that credit union was to help people save money, to try and instill that with individuals. And it's been very, very difficult in Zimbabwe since they had hyperinflation of 200,000% or 200 million%. Back in the 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
So they are using the U.S. dollar, and money is very scarce. You can only withdraw $50 a day out of a bank, an ATM machine, or a bank branch lobby. Money is very scarce, and so they recognize at this credit union that I visited the importance of saving money. Two other credit unions in Harare were exclusively focused around women's development credit union. They're referred to as SACCOs there, but Women's Development Credit Union and WISACO, which is another women's credit union where only women can belong to the credit union. That's the field of membership, and they use that savings then to provide microloans for businesses for their members, so they can get, whether it's an agricultural business or some other type of activity started where they could begin to make more money. But it comes back to the same thing that we do here. How do and why is it important to save money? Earlier this year, the Federal Reserve came out with a study that only 50% of Americans, or I should say 50% of Americans, do not have $400 for an emergency if it were to happen tomorrow.
Whoa.
So that's a significant issue that we have to address in our country. And so I take the experiences from my personal travels in Africa to say, if individuals in a different continent, in an economic reality that is much different and much more challenging than ours, can have the foresight and the positive outlook to focus on saving money, then we should be able to move the needle a little bit here. In fact, next week on Wednesday, Peninsula Credit Union's facilitating a financial reality fair at Shelton High School. We'll be working with 100 students over the course of the day, volunteers from the Mason Economic Development Council and the Shelton Mason Chamber will be helping us facilitate this real-world experience about financial decisions that you have to make as an adult. And laying that foundation, and a core component of that is saving money and saving money for retirement. And how do you make financial decisions in your life? So we're working with the students at Shelton High School next week, doing the same types of thought process that I was talking about with individuals at credit unions in Rwanda and Zimbabwe.
Amazing. And I'm thinking, and I'm going to generalize a little bit here, but when I hear about savings and ways to save and institutions that help promote and educate its members on savings, it seems to me there is quite a difference between banks and credit unions, and it sounds like this could be around the world. Why is there that difference?
Well, I think the primary difference is in our structure. So in a credit union, we're a cooperative organization, a financial cooperative, and any of the money that is raised is returned into that cooperative. A bank structure inherently raises money for their stockholders or their shareholders or the private ownership of that bank. That's where those profits go to. So inherent in a credit union is the sense of community and how we give back to that community and how we support and make it better by increasing the financial capability of individuals that are part of that community. So that's the major distinction. There's several others, of course. We're democratically controlled. All members of a credit union have the opportunity to weigh in and select the board of directors, their representatives, my bosses. So that all comes from the membership. In a stock-held bank, it's the stockholders who may or may not have an account at that institution, but the stockholders then vote on who the board is. And we've seen some of the outcomes of that recently with Wells Fargo and them making the news, right? That got a little bit away from them, perhaps. But we always maintain that focus on the member and the cooperative structure, the concern for the community, building financial capability for the members of that community, being democratically controlled. Those are distinct differences that are part of the operating, and these are cooperative operating principles, by the way, that don't just apply to credit unions, they apply to any type of cooperative. So Winco, if anybody knows of that store, that's a cooperative grocery store owned by its employees. REI is a big co-op that everybody knows, of course, here in the Northwest, and if you're a member of REI, you get a dividend check based on what you purchase throughout the year, giving back to the members. Okay. So there's many examples of cooperatives. Credit unions are the financial service cooperative organization.
I find it interesting, as you were talking a little bit ago, too, about the struggles that the countries that you visited have been through, the hyperinflation and things like that. I know that back in '94, Rwanda, faced a major genocide. That could be really something that could tear a country apart. And we here in America are going through, obviously not in any stretch of the imagination, similar problems, but still we are at a kind of a crossroads. There are, back and forth against each other. What did you see about the resilience of the rebuilding of the people in Rwanda? And did you have can you take some of that and hopeful for what we have going on around here?
Yeah, I have to share that I had on more than one occasion people offer to allow me to stay in Rwanda and Zimbabwe, knowing that the week after I returned to the United States, we were having our election.
Oh, okay.
So they said, I don't know who you're voting for, and I didn't talk about it, but depending upon whether or not who you voted for wins or loses, if you'd like to stay, you're more than welcome to.
Are they following? Were they following what was happening here?
Absolutely.
Everybody's following.
Absolutely, yeah. And there was two quotes that I remember distinctly. One was a gentleman that shared with me that we watch America. We watch America democracy. We consider the United States to be leaders in that democracy. What we've been observing makes us question how well that system works.
Wow.
The other, probably more meaningful, was a housekeeper at the hotel that I stayed at in Kigali, Rwanda. She shared something with me that I don't think I'll ever forget. Her comment was, America is the heart of the world. America helps the rest of the world. America helps the rest of the world function. We learn from America. It is the heartbeat of what happens in any country. And I thought that was really powerful. And it was also indicative in Rwanda to your question about what happened after the genocide. At a time where, depending upon who you ask, 11 to 20% of the population was exterminated within 100 days.
Wow.
Close to 1 million people within 100 days were bludgeoned to death, shot. Neighbors who had been neighbors for more than 20 years but happened to be from a different background. There was two primary groups of people, the Tutsis and the Hutus. And the Hutus had control of the government, but the Hutus were sort of the middle class citizen. The Tutsis were who the Germans, Rwanda was originally a German area. The Tutsis were given a lot more privilege over time. And so there was a lot of pent-up frustration, and it was that distinction between classes that led up to this pressure that when the president's plane was shot down in April of 1994, it initiated the genocide.
Right.
And that 1 million people being killed over the next 100 days.
Wow.
It didn't matter whether or not it was a male or a female or a child who was 3 or 4 years old or an elderly person. If you were of the Tutsi background, the controlling party and the government there said eliminate those people, and they were. So it was a very, very difficult time. And after that, around 2000, the early 2000s, the government really realized we are one country. That was an ugly, probably unnecessary part of our past, but we have a lot to be thankful for. We have a lot that we can export, which they do, coffee and tea. They do receive some aid, but they're growing their export business. I met with an individual who's working on exporting and working with the surrounding countries to get goods to the seaports in Kenya, because Rwanda's a landlocked country. So he's working with those governments to say, let's not tax each other back and forth to trade money. Let's all leverage the opportunities that we have for these exports. So that's a large part, and then some tourism, like the gorillas that I went to visit in the bamboo rainforest. They created a new flag in the early 2000s. They created a new anthem. Everybody thinks of themselves as Rwandan. The government said we have to make sure that our children are educated because they're our future. And in fact, 98% of the children in Rwanda are now in school. It's one of the leading countries in the world in terms of children that are going through the educational system.
That's great.
One day a month, all citizens are required to do cleanup. It's, I think, the fourth Saturday morning of every month. You're required. Markets close, shops close, taxi drivers stop. Everything stops, so whether it's in front of your own residence where you live, or it's a park or along a road, people are out there picking up trash or picking up things. It's a beautifully clean country and wonderful people with a positive outlook that they know that by coming together, they have a lot more opportunity than by focusing on the past where there was differences. And so they look at themselves as Rwandians. And I really truly believe that even in the wake of our election, that everybody here in the United States knows that there's opportunities, and the more that we can work together towards those opportunities, the stronger we'll become.
The CEO of Peninsula Credit Union here on this eve of Thanksgiving, Jim Morrell. Some great words and great stories. My goodness, I can only imagine some of the things that you saw on your trip. Thank you so much for coming on with me and talking with me about this. I wish you a happy Thanksgiving and your family as well.
Happy Thanksgiving to you, Jeff.
We'll get you back on as well in the next upcoming weeks as we move towards the holidays.
We're very thankful at Peninsula Credit Union to be a part of this community and be working alongside everybody to make it stronger.
Thank you very much.
Do you know you have access to the fastest internet in Washington State? Switch to iFiber Communications right now and take advantage of our special offers. Pay only $29.95 for 100 megabit high-speed internet, or get 3 months of internet absolutely free. That's right, $29.95 for 100 megabit speeds or 3 months of internet free. Shop, stream, and game like never before with iFiber Communications high-speed internet. Call 360-427-4000 or check us online at ifiber.tv. Subject to credit approval, valid on a 24-month contract.